Here we go again, Road to React. This time we're going to talk about impossible states. So apparently there's some situations where if you have multiple states, there's ways for the UI to break. For example, if there's some sort of error message that occurs and you're loading, you're showing some sort of loading logo screen, and it just never changes back after the error occurs. So what Robin is saying is we can make everything that we have, all the states, into, or we can get all the states to use the reducer hook. So let me show you what we're talking about. So this part actually kind of made sense and kind of cleared up some of the confusion from the last section. So again, here's our code. We added the Redux stuff. And what we're going to do is basically, and I'm trying to simplify it as much as I can, we're going to try to convert these, these two right here that you see, line 65 and 66, the use states to use Redux. So everything is going to use Redux from this point on, as far as I can tell. All right, so how are we going to do this? Well, let's start. Let's actually start with those two lines. I feel like that makes the most sense. So let's see, what did Robin do with those two lines? Okay, cool. Actually, I'm still looking for it. I didn't find it. I thought I found it. Okay, cool. Actually, what Robin did is just remove them. Okay, so that's step one. Step two is we're gonna add, what makes sense to go over next? Okay, where we actually call on the reducer, the React use reducer right here. Instead of just an empty array, which represents the stories, we're going to have something a little more complex. We're going to get rid of the array, and we're going to have an object. And this object is going to contain a data field. This will represent the initial stories. And then we're going to add, is loading. We're going to set it to false initially. Is error, which we're going to set to false. And that's it. So I feel like this is a good first place to start. So now this use reducer doesn't just keep track of the stories, but it's also keeping track of is loading and is error. So have you noticed that is loading and is error is always related to the stories, right? Whether we're loading a story, whether there's a problem retrieving the stories. So it kind of makes sense to do this. And we need to change these values whenever we have a change in the stories, so keep that in mind. So what should we go over next? I feel like, okay, how about this? How about set loading? So every time we call, we're trying to change the loading and the error state, the old way of doing it, that's where we're gonna go over those, and we're going to change them to the newer way of doing it. So that means set is loading is going to be replaced by dispatch stories, type stories fetch init. Okay, so then we get rid of set is loading. And we don't know what this does exactly yet because we haven't added it to this list yet, right? To this switch statement. So we'll come to that. Okay, so here we're telling the Redux store that we're fetching stories. And then where else? Well, down here, where we're setting the stories, we're going to replace that with something. We're going to name it something else. We're going to name it stories fetch success. So this represents when we have retrieved the stories successfully. This is what we call on. Then set loading, again, that's the old way of changing loading. we're gonna remove that. We're not gonna do it that way anymore, and we're gonna remove this line as well, this one right here, because this is the old way of changing the error state. We're gonna replace it with a Redux call. Oops. Let me grab the whole thing. And this one is called stories fetch failure. Okay, so stories fetch init, stories fetch success, stories fetch failure. All right, cool. So this kind of made sense to me. I'm like, okay, now I'm getting it. This makes a lot of sense to me. And then down here on line 9, let me see where this is. Handle remove story, where we have, where we're filtering search stories. Oh, right here. In search stories, we're calling on stories filter, right? Stories. We don't have story state anymore. Now it's a little bit slightly more complex in the sense that it's within its stories data dot filter. So we have to add this data field to it, because remember, for some of you, you probably already know where that comes from. It's from right here, right? We added this data field. So, okay, so what's next? So we change this and added data. What's next? Is error. So where is that? So whenever we have a error right here, we're going to replace that with, instead of is error, what we're going to say is stories is error instead of just is error, because there is no is error that is state any longer. What else? Then is loading doesn't exist, same thing, right? Stories. Okay, that's it in terms of all the things outside of the actual stories reducer. Now we got to add all these new reducers, the reducer types, to stories reducer. And for that, I'm just going to copy. I'm just going to blindly copy and paste the switch statement pretty much. I think that's just going to make it easier. So everything up to the default value, I'm just going to copy this stuff right here. I'm going to get rid of it. There we go. So we have set stories, stories fetch init, stories fetch success, stories fetch failure, and remove story. And have you noticed something else that's different besides adding the new cases? Well, one thing you've noticed is we're using the spread operator, and what we're saying is now we're not just returning the state like we did before. We're also adding whatever is loading part and is error part. So it's a little bit more complex now. The state is a little bit more complex, that is, because down here, remember, it's not just an empty array anymore. It's an object that has 3 fields. So we need to return that the right way. So whatever was inside of that object plus these new values right here. All right, cool. I think that's it. Let's see if this works. And maybe I forgot to do something. So the best way to test it is actually just to pull up the browser, refresh. If there's an error, if I made a mistake, it would have complained about it. And remove. Ooh, there we go. Stories filter is not a function. Perfect. Okay, so we ran into an issue, and I already know, and you probably already know what the issue is. Stories filter is not a function. Can you figure out why? Yeah, because we're missing the data field. What line is this on? I believe it's 108, and right here. So it should be stories data dot filter, right? So let's see if it works now. Refresh. Okay. Ooh, state filter is not a function. Oh wow, it keeps doing it. What did we do wrong this time? This time it's not that clear. So it's saying on line 47 right here, it doesn't like that because we need to add, oh, that part is actually, oh, Robin had this wrong then, I guess, because I got that from Robin. State filter. Oh, what? He has it as state. I think he forgot to update. He forgot to add payload object. Remove story. Yeah, we need to add. So I'm trying to make sense of his code and see if he made a mistake here, maybe. Which I would be surprised if he did. And I'm trying to figure out where I made the mistake, maybe. Okay. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is all we have to do. Let's try again. Filter of undefined. Line 124. What did I miss? 124. Huh. I missed something. Can't figure out what I missed. Let me see. I'm just going over the changes that he has made and see if search stories. To be honest, this is kinda interesting because I don't know. Return state filter. That can't be right, is it? Which is action payload. So where are we calling on remove story? Let's go there. So remove story is right here. The payload is item. And we're filtering out stories, data, which is correct. Stories, data. So with what am I missing? All right, let's do this. I don't want to spend too much time on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy over his code. And let me make sure his code works. Yeah, his code works. So I'm just gonna copy the whole thing. No, that's not right. Actually, no. I was looking at the wrong code. Okay. Okay, yeah, his code works. Let me see what happens if I just copy all of his code. Save it. Refresh it. Okay, now it works. Okay, well, I didn't want to debug for too long on this video, so I just copied over the code. I am definitely still curious on what I did wrong. Remove story is... Oh, wait, I know what I did wrong. Data, state, data, filter. Let me put my code back in. Let me see. No. Oh, shoot, I get it. What the heck? Let me see if that was it. Oh my god, that was it. That was so dumb. I just had an extra return statement there. That's it. Alright guys, that was it. I hope you learned something from that. As in, look at the obvious first. In this case, I had 2 return statements, and that's a lot more obvious than anything else. Alright guys, till next time, take care. And don't forget to subscribe.